I'll have to be honest with you. First thing I'm going to mention right up front is it's free. I like this service when it's free because you can tie up a lot of money in different services, and from experience I found out that sometimes you can pay a lot of money and you may not be getting that much out of it.
Good afternoon, welcome to GrainTV. My name is Cody Bills. Today is Thursday the 16th. We had the markets closing lower on the day. After this morning, we were positive. A nice little rally there in the overnight session, starting out the day in the positive, but unfortunately unable to hold on to those gains here. Let's turn over to the grain hedge trading platform, see where we closed off the day. You'll notice corn down 3/4 cent to 439.5 on the December contract. Wheat in Chicago here down 4 1/4 cents to 562.5 on the September contract. And November soybeans down 7.5 cents here on the day. We did have some news this morning. Strategies Grain cut their EU corn crop by 0.8 million metric tons to 66.7 million metric tons. They also cut their wheat crop by 0.7 million metric tons down to 140.9 million metric tons. A lot of that has to do with the very hot weather that's moving through the EU and really causing some concern about production over there. In general, corn was propped up a little bit throughout the day due to some hot weather that's moving through the Midwest right now and through this weekend. Looks as though we'll also be getting more hot weather next weekend, but the weather models are still kind of disagreeing about the overall intensity of next weekend's heat, intensity and duration. So when you look at the weather forecast, today's highs, tomorrow's highs here looking like highs in the 90s, whereas by Monday we should be back into the mid-80s throughout most of the Midwest. So looks as though that heat is causing a little bit of concern, a little bit of keeping corn propped up there, but in general not a major concern because it's really unable to move us higher here on the price chart. When you look at this morning's export sales, you'll notice that corn and wheat both were very disappointing here. Corn came in 331,000 metric tons. That was on the low side of analyst expectations. It was down 38% week over week and was a marketing year low. So disappointing corn sales. When you look at soybean sales, only booking 291,000 metric tons. That was down 16% here from the previous week. So this is not very strong sales. Not only that, but we also have news that Mexico bought several cargoes of French wheat here for nearby delivery. The bottom line when you look at that is that U.S. wheat is just not very competitive on the global market. It's causing some not so positive weekly export numbers, but it's also causing our neighbors to have to go out and buy wheat from the EU to ship into their country. When you look at soybeans, it was mostly in line with analyst expectations. Positive sales here, 45,000 metric tons. Nothing outstanding, but when you look at it, we are later on in the marketing year, so it wasn't all that disappointing. When you look at new crop sales, you'll see that both corn and soybeans beat analyst expectations here. Corn had 325,000 metric tons. That was above the 150 to 300,000 metric tons expected by analysts. And soybeans here, nice sales, but in general, new crop soybean sales are behind. They're kind of lagging in terms of the overall pace needed and lagging in terms of what we saw last year. So we only booked 507,000 metric tons. That was above analyst expectations, though, which range between 200 to 400,000 metric tons. Take a look at this corn chart. What you're going to see here is really last week and then this week's model. You'll notice the difference between last week's model and this week is the revision in the July WASDE report to export sales. We did see an increase of 25 million bushels in exports in that July WASDE report. That's basically adding on another 635,000 metric tons. And you'll notice what it did here to the chart. You'll see we're now running a little bit behind pace needed to meet USDA expectations. We booked a cumulative 46.5 million metric tons. Analysts are expecting somewhere around needing around 47.8 here. So when you look at that, you'll notice that we are behind pace needed to meet USDA expectations now, taking into effect that revision that we saw last Friday. When you look at soybeans, we did see a revision of 15 million bushel increase to export sales in the July WASDE report. That's basically like adding on another 381,000 metric tons of sales here. So when you look at this, we've booked 50.6 million metric tons. Right now, what we would need in terms of meeting USDA expectations, taking into account seasonality, is about 49.9 million metric tons. So we used to be running well ahead of pace. Now we're only about 0.7 million metric tons ahead of pace needed to meet USDA expectations. That's not a whole lot, taking into account this time of the year when we could see cancellations. If we see any sort of cancellations here, it's quite possible that we could begin to start falling behind the pace expected. So other than that, guys, that wraps up today's show. I guess the big takeaway here is that we did get a little bit of a pause. Soybeans pulling back a little bit, corn kind of hanging out where it's at. But I think one of the things that we want to be paying attention to is the price action and the fact that we could be moving into a report on Monday, where we could see some crop conditions increase. This week was for the most part relatively clear, and so that could have a positive effect on the overall crop and crop ratings on Monday. If you guys have any questions, give us a call. Number's 877-472-4607. I look forward to hearing from you. We'll see you here Friday for the weekly wrap-up.